Good morning, Gateway Kids. Before we have a look at today's story, let's have a think about where it fits in the big story of the whole Bible. So here we have our Bible in a nutshell. God made, man disobeyed, big flood, big family, heave ho. And we're going to stop there for now. So over the past few months, we've learned about God creating the whole world, God's promise to Abraham to give him a big family, and about how God is growing his big family. Last week, we learned about Joseph and his whole family moving to Egypt to escape the famine in Canaan. God's big family, his special people, had a special name. They were called the Israelites. God's big family were called the Israelites. And God's big family, his special people, the Israelites, grew and grew and grew until there were many, many of them living in Egypt with the Egyptians. Now, about 400 years had passed since Joseph brought his family to Egypt, and the Egyptians were not being friendly to God's people, the Israelites, anymore. In fact, they were being horrible to them. They were keeping them as slaves and treating them really badly. And here we have our picture of the Israelites having to get the clay out of the ground to make bricks. And you can see that they're not happy. They've got sad faces. And in the front of the picture, you can see some Egyptians looking mean with their eyebrows going like this. And that's our heave-ho section of our Bible timeline. So the Israelites are feeling really sad. But as always, God had a plan and he knew the big story. So let's find out what happens in today's story about an Israelite mummy and her baby.
Hi Gateway Kids, I wanted to introduce you to someone today, and that is Dottie. Say hi to Dottie. Hello. So Dottie is very precious to me, and the reason why he's so precious is because he was my favourite toy since I was very, very little. And when I moved to Leeds, I just had to bring him with me. So he's very, very precious to me. And I thought that it would be really great if, whilst you listen to today's story, you could be holding something that is precious to you. So that could be a toy like Dottie, or it could be some Lego, it could be a book you love to read, it could be a game that you like to play, it could even be a TV remote control if that's what you love doing, it could even be a Pog. Anything that is precious to you. So if you want to pause the video there and go and get your something precious to hold. So hopefully you're all now holding something that's precious to you. And in today's story, Dottie is going to play the part of Moses, because Moses was someone very precious, and he was very precious to his mum. His mum's name was Jochebed, and he was very precious to Jochebed. So the story goes like this. Jochebed had something so precious, something so valuable, that gave her so much joy. It was more precious than gold or diamonds. Jochebed's something precious was a little baby boy. Her boy's name was Moses, and he was her precious son. Jochebed wanted nothing to hurt or harm him. She would protect her precious one. But they lived in a time of fear, where there lived a nasty king. The King Pharaoh wanted power. He wanted to rule everything. Kill all the little boys who were born Israelite. Pharaoh said. Jochebed knew this was not all right. Moses was in danger. Her precious one could lose his life. So she hid him the best she could, in fear for his life. But one day it got too much. She couldn't hide him anymore. She knew that at any moment his killers would be knocking on her door. So she wrapped him up and placed him in a basket. She knew now only God could keep him safe. She could have clung on to him for longer, but instead she chose faith. Imagine what she was feeling when she let her precious one go. But she prayed, I trust in the God I know. She let the basket down the river, praying with all her might. Jochebed, she cried a lot that night. But she was about to find out what happens when in God we put our faith. The God who can do more than we imagine. The God who would keep her precious one safe. Moses drifted down the river just a little while away until he was spotted by a woman out to bathe that day. This was Pharaoh's daughter. She would ensure that Moses was kept alive. But more than that, she allowed him to live in the palace where he would thrive. So God had already done more than Jochebed dreamed could come true, because she placed her trust in him and said, Lord, I trust in you. But this was just the beginning of God had an even greater plan. When this little boy Moses grew up to become a man, Moses would grow up to be the man that God would use to make an entire nation safe. All because of Jochebed and her amazing faith.